You give me the cue, Kari.
Welcome, everyone. I think it's 10 o'clock, just after 10. Why don't we get started, Steve?
Great. Next slide. Good morning, everyone, and welcome on this beautiful day. It's actually a beautiful day compared to the last couple of days that we've been dealing with as far as the heat goes. It's actually really nice out. So it's great to see you all in this space. With our, as you did, this is a second session of our 4 sessions this summer around really retooling, strengthening, rebuilding some of your attendance practices and your leadership team practices. So we welcome you here. So if everyone can just drop their name, their role, their district, school in the chat, that'd be great. Next slide. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to provide you with some updates from our fearless leader, Kari Sullivan, who leads this work. And then we have a great opportunity to have Amanda Pickett, who leads the climate and culture work at the State Department of Ed, and our close colleague and friend, Dr. Michelle Baker from Wilby, to share some of her work around really those tier 1 school climate and culture practices to engage families and engage students. And then we'll close with just an upcoming, the dates for our next 2 sessions. So welcome everyone, and we look forward to a great session today. Okay, Kari, next slide. Okay, it's yours, Kari.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Welcome to our second in our series of Summer Talk Tuesdays. As usual, I'm going to go over what's new at CSDE. Some of these may be relevant, may not be relevant to everyone, but want to make sure if it is, it's here. These are all from the Superintendent's Digest and have gone back since our last Talk Tuesday. So we have educational financial systems open. There are 2 new positions reposted at the State Department of Education that were authorized through legislation this year. Our Education Bureau Chief for Dyslexia and Reading Disabilities, and Education Director of the Literacy Research and Reading Success. So those 2 positions are linked there. You're welcome to share them as you feel appropriate. We introduced an updated Connecticut Learning Hub, which you'll learn more about on a next slide. The 10 things you can do to renew district curricula this summer. Let's see, vocabulary reading assessments, circular letter about radon system inspections. Computer Science EdSite dashboard is up for district review. There's a CHESLA Alliance District Teacher Loan Subsidy Program, which is an incentive for those districts for districts looking for teachers and for our teachers. ADTLS flyer, and then the Go Open Connecticut is now open, has the African American, Black, and Puerto Rican Latino course of studies on it. So next slide, please. And this is some snapshots of the Connecticut Learning Hub, which has been just released and updated. It's fantastic. There's different areas. There's a collaborative learning hub, the educator learning hub, family learning hub, student-centered learning hub, the summer learning hub, and each of the hubs has an introductory video, which is great, right? Of the person who is sort of the lead in that area. The first one, of course, is the Commissioner of Education, but there's free and interactive webpage of digital resources. The link is here when you get the PowerPoint slides, but there's also a QR code for you to just take a picture of it, and you can go right to the Connecticut Learning Hub. I will put, we'll put a copy, a PDF of the slides in the chat. Next slide, please. Are there any questions actually about this? No? It's a really great resource and highly recommend you visit. Next slide. So 55.9% of homeless students were chronically absent year-to-date in May of 2022. Many of the districts had as high as 70 to 75%. This is a deep concern, for us. And I wanted to make sure folks knew of some resources that are happening right now over the summer to help folks prepare for students who may be struggling with homelessness, which could mean doubled up in with another family, which might mean couch surfing. And there's many students who are not identified as needing supports because of housing. But these webinars are offered, I think, through the National Center for Homeless Education. There's supporting the education of unaccompanied students experiencing homelessness, paving the way to college for students experiencing homelessness, understanding doubling up, McKinney-Vento school selection rights, and determining McKinney-Vento eligibility. And these are recorded, and these other sites, these last 3 bullets at the bottom, have lots of resources for supporting students who are struggling with housing. And this is a deep concern right now, and that number is really high. And that is as of May year to date. Next slide, please. So the June collection is when the State Department of Education collects all the attendance data. We collect days of membership and days in attendance, and that is used to calculate chronic absence rates for schools and for districts. That's published on EdSite. We also this year are collecting truancy data at the student level. That data was due from the districts July 14th, but districts have an opportunity to review and correct data before it's certified by an administrator on August 11th. There are reports that have student level data. We always hear after the data is released, there's mistakes, but now is the opportunity for district and school administrators to review these reports and make sure that they're accurate. The deadline for that is August 11th. And there's a QR code to the PSIS reference guide that talks about the June collection and the other collections. I also included here in the PSIS reference are 2 of the best resources around tracking attendance. There's the guideline for reporting student attendance, and then there's the reporting information about students who are disengaged. So if you have questions about when to unenroll a student or when to mark them absent or not, what to do if a student's gone on vacation, those things are all in those appendices. So next slide, please. This is a graphic that was developed several years ago by our performance office, and it talks about the data life cycle. And I always just really liked it because it shows you on the first column, the 1, 2, 3 is what happens at the school as you get ready to send your data to the Connecticut State Department of Education. And then right now we're at the data, number 4, the data review and the data certification phase. That is when you need to make sure it's accurate. And so if you work at a school or a district level or you're in an administrator position, you may want to review that data because on August 11th, the data is frozen, as you can see in that big ice cube, and there's hardly ever any changes after that date. And then the data is completed and cleaned here at the State Department and reported publicly, usually in the fall. So does anyone have any questions about that? You would see your PSIS coordinator to get the attendance reports for the June collection. That's what you would ask for, the attendance reports for the June collection, both attendance and truancy. Truancy is collected separately, where they just identify if a student was truant, yes or no. Okay, I don't see any hands or any questions. Next slide, please. All right, that's it for the state updates, and it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague Amanda Pickett from the State Department of Education and Dr. Michelle Baker from Wilby High School in Waterbury. Thank you.
Thank you, Kari. I will get us started, and hopefully my voice won't be the loudest or the longest here because I'm so lucky to have Dr. Baker joining me for our section here, really looking at school climate and the impact on attendance. So I know we've spoken a lot in this space about how attendance is a data piece, and we need to think critically about how we are engaging students, understanding their needs, and supporting them with programming. So thank you to Kari that her and I get to partner a lot because we see the connection of climate and culture with engagement and attendance. So today we're going to have some conversation about Tier 1 practices. So if we can go to the next slide, please. We are going to be talking about that connection of climate and attendance. We're going to look at tier 1 practices. And I will share with you that I explicitly talk about tier 1. I know we all come to these sessions because we're worried about the chronic absence numbers and the students in tier 2 and tier 3. And I'm going to validate that concern. But oftentimes in my work with schools and districts, the breakdown happens in tier 1. We're building kind of a reverse triangle. We're trying all of our best to provide crisis and response to a lot of kids, which is not a sustainable way and the most effective and efficient way to address the needs of your students and staff. So we're going to focus heavily on tier 1 because the best thing you can do for your school or district is really build a solid, comprehensive tier 1 support structure. So then you can actually meet the needs of students in a tiered way, in a multi-tiered way, effectively and efficiently. We are going to be focusing on relationship building. Thank you to Kari. She stresses that often, the importance of connected communities. So this is where Dr. Baker is going to come in and chat about what she's doing at Wilby with her team in Waterbury, and thinking critically about how we are building relationships as an attendance strategy, but linking it and aligning it to other work that they're doing. So really thinking critically about how this work supports multiple possible initiatives or strategies in your school or district. And then we're going to share some resources with you. Next slide. So if we were together, and you can hit enter again because there's a little animation. If we were together, we would do this all together. And I see an old colleague of mine where we used to do this a lot. But since we're in virtual space and time is already ticking away, I'm going to ask that we do build some community here in a virtual way. So in the chat box, if you could answer the circle prompt there, an attribute of a colleague that is making a difference to you, students, or the school. So think about a colleague that you might depend on, that you're happy shows up to work each day. And what is that attribute? What is it about them that you think is making a difference to you, to students, or to the school? And feel free to put that in the chat. And I'm going to connect this to our content because we often talk about the importance of relationships. And then it's like, but how do we do that? And we don't have time for that. We've done these types of circles, especially if you keep them lean, where you put some really clear parameters about, 1 or 2 words or no more than 3 to 5 words. And you can do a very large group. I was in Windsor once. I see Christina on the call. I was in Windsor once and I had a group of middle school staff. I think there was about 115 people in a cafeteria, and we did a circle in 3 minutes. So we were able to get through 115 people in 3 minutes. So it's possible. And the importance here is that we cannot repair relationships if we don't have a relationship to start with. So really thinking critically about what practices do you have in place to build relationships with staff and students. So I'm going to quickly look at the chat here. Resilience, tenacity, humor, cheerful and positive, empathy, collaborative, enthusiasm. So yes, all of those qualities. Thank you so much for joining in the chat there and helping build some community. Next slide. So this is a graphic that I've come across, and I just want to put it in a space that I know our staff and our schools are struggling. Our leaders are struggling, our teachers are struggling, our paras, our front office staff, that everybody feels like they have a million hats that they're wearing, just one more thing. So I really want us to keep this in our frame of mind through the rest of the conversation today about how do we either remove hats, how do we streamline the hats, and how are we building structures of support, especially for the adults in our building, so the work that we're doing is meaningful, impactful, and doable, that we all have the same purpose, and we have clear ideas about what our goals or expectations are. So I just wanted to put in the space here that I acknowledge the 8 million things that everybody's doing on a daily basis. And my hope is to not add another hat to this graphic, but to really help streamline some of these hats and make the work more sustainable. And yes, I think Zookeeper is a good one too, Christina. Next slide. You can go to the next one. So we're going to start with some just foundational things. I'm going to move through these quickly because if you've participated in Talk Tuesday before, some of this content has been reviewed. So just to make sure we're on the same page around definitions, want to make sure everybody is aware that in Public Act 19166, there was some updates to our definitions here in Connecticut. So school climate is one that was updated. There's also a definition for positive school climate. There's a definition for SEL. The bullying definition was revised. So all of you with bullying policies in your schools, you might want to check your handbook and make sure the updated definition is included there. But the purpose for our conversation here today is to really think about culture, how we shape that. How do we build these shared norms, values, beliefs, traditions, rituals, routines that build up over time? How do you shape that culture? How do you form that culture? And I've done a lot of work with schools in this area, and I will share, and some lessons learned along the way. Used to do some training where we work with a team of folks and we outline those expectations at a school, and then we put them everywhere. And as I reflect, a huge misstep there, that we need to ensure that students, staff, and families are part of setting those expectations, defining them, that we're all on the same page. If we truly want to create inclusive communities where students, staff, and families feel welcomed, the culture needs to be shared. That means that we all need to take part in building that culture. Climate is the part of the definition that's personal. It's how you experience the culture. So we might all be in one space together, but how we experience the culture of that space is different based on our own identity and our own experiences. So we want to try our best to ensure that the climate is a positive space, or that we address it if it's not. So thinking critically about how we at schools collectively shape culture to then create a positive school climate for staff and students and families. So just for a moment, I'd like you to kind of personally reflect. What are the values, beliefs, rituals, traditions that shape who you are? So personally, what shapes you? And how does that influence the space that you co-create in your community? So what identity are you bringing into your space that helps you shape your classroom community or your school community? And then thinking about the school or the classroom that you might be in, who shapes the culture at your school or organization? How are you determining the values and beliefs that drive your school? So I just want to put that in there because we have a responsibility as adults, not to just prescribe the culture, but really co-construct it with our community. Next slide, Christine. And then I used to say this when I worked with my colleagues at CERC, you can't have a presentation without a triangle. So I've won the lottery here. Here's my triangle. But I mentioned that we're focusing on tier 1. And the reason that I like this graphic is if you look at the blue section, see how it goes under all the tiers? This is that important piece around ensuring that you have a solid tier 1 and that you are a comprehensive tier 1 that is truly being offered to all students, and then layering your tier 2 and tier 3 supports on top of that. And I try to use a non-example to kind of illustrate this. I used to provide small group supports as a social worker in schools. I would pull out a group of students working on emotional regulation, talking about belly breathing, identifying your emotions, and send them back to class. The classroom that they went into did not have emotional vocabulary shared or explicitly taught in the tier 1 environment. There wasn't emotional vocabulary prompted and pre-corrected in the classroom space. The strategies that I was teaching the students, the classroom teacher had no idea what those strategies were. They just came to my space and then I sent them back. So that tier 2 intervention was not built off of tier 1. It was separate from what was happening in tier 1, which makes it really challenging for students to be able to transfer skills into the environments that they're hoping to use them. And to really sustain the use of those skills. So just for us to reflect that when we're building our multi-tiered system, that we're building it off of our tier 1. And we have to be constantly thinking when we're doing and developing those tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, how is this supported in a tier 1 environment? Next slide, Christine. Also want to acknowledge that Attendance Works has a ton of resources around multi-tiered supports for attendance specifically. And they also have it developed in a multi-tiered way. Obviously, here in the graphic, you see in Tier 1, an engaging school climate is one of those great Tier 1 practices. So thinking about those efforts along with building those positive relationships with students and families. I want to share in here that sometimes we move quick to like, what can we do for kids? What do we need to do for students and families? I want to say it's just as important to do all of these things for your staff, because that is really a foundational piece to climate and culture. The adults have to be happy, safe, welcomed, included, and affirmed as well, if we want them to do the same for students. So thinking critically about how we are engaging staff in our climate, how we are building positive relationships between our staff, looking at their data, their attendance data as well. So same practices for kids and for adults. Next slide, Christine. And then what Attendance Works does is they provide the below Tier 1 is what they call these foundational supports. And I like to link this to a lot of conversation we've had in Talk Tuesday and another community of practice, is thinking about the connection of this to root causes of absences. So when we look at these factors, thinking about a healthy living environment, enrichment activities, positive relationships, my challenge to you all would be to pull your students who might, reach the threshold of chronically absent and do a little checklist. Are these in place for them? And if not, what are we doing to support these foundational critical elements to make sure coming to school, just arriving at school, is possible for them to be engaged in learning? So my challenge to you all is to possibly go back to your school teams, pull your student data and say, do we have something in place for these kiddos, especially in these foundational areas? Next slide, Christine. This slide I added, and it's funny, Kari and I had a conversation about this yesterday. It is not specific, it's not explicit, it's not a how to do anything. But when I saw this slide from Attendance Works, I started bolding and italicizing certain words. And the reason I did that is because to me, this list completely aligns to what we say are good system Tier 1 practices for a behavioral framework. So when we talk about what are good Tier 1 features of behaviorally supporting students, we think about clear and concise communication and clear and concise expectations that are shared, developed routines that are practiced and predictable and consistent. We talk about taking data and using that data to monitor how we're doing. We talk about family engagement, recognizing attendance, recognizing behavior. I say to folks all the time, I purposely use the word reinforce or recognize or acknowledge behavior, not reward. Sometimes that subtle change in language, especially at our secondary levels, can get folks a little bit more on board with really reinforcing good attendance and coming to school, but also same thing with behavior. And then thinking about how we do these things in an aligned way. So I know many of folks on this call have school attendance teams. They probably have a school climate team. Thinking about how do those teams work together on the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve, which could be a whole nother Talk Tuesday. Next slide, please, Christine. And so now we're going to move into building relationships, and I'm getting to the fun part. It's going to be less me and more Dr. Baker. Next slide, Christine. So I opened the definition piece really looking critically at the difference between culture and climate. And I asked you all to kind of personally reflect for a moment. And the reason that I do this is because in order to build relationships with others, you really got to know yourself. So I know we've had conversations about SEL and the link of that work to attendance in school climate and culture. I wanted us to first just think critically about self-awareness. How do we, as practitioners, as adults in buildings, understand our own emotions, our own identity, our own goals, our own values, and how that shows up in the classroom? So I encourage you all to take this slide with you, to go back to your staff and really hone in on truly understanding self before we can understand others. And how do we recognize when bias might be creeping in, when unknowns might be creeping in, when our own flavor and style is dominating the space, and how do we welcome that into a more shared decision-making style? So I just wanted to put that out there because I think it's really important. Again, like I said, before we jump into what do we do for kids, what are we doing for the adults? And I think having a pause moment to really reflect on who we are and what we bring to the table, and how do we ensure that we create these inclusive spaces is a really important first step. Next slide, Christine. So, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. When Dr. Baker and I were chatting a little bit about what we could talk about in our Talk Tuesday, we both shared that we want to be intentional, that there is not a magic wand to this work. There's not like a here's what you do and everything will be better. Just follow what Dr. Baker is doing at Wilby and you'll all are going to have amazing relationships and attendance. That's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to demonstrate is that Dr. Baker has been really thoughtful and intentional in her leadership around attendance, engagement, and climate at Wilby. And isn't just doing things because she's heard about it or it sounded great or she just read a book that like said this is a thing to do. She was intentional about how she selected the strategies that she selected. So this comes from NERN, the National Implementation Research Network. Any of you participated in the Alliance Symposium or NetStats, you heard a lot about the Hexagon tool and looking at how we use evidence and need and fit to determine our next steps. So Dr. Baker and I are really going to kind of have a facilitated discussion to think about how did she use data, information, understanding the needs of her students and staff, understand how this fits with the work that she's doing and what capacity was needed to do the work that she's doing. Because what she's doing at Wilby might not make sense for every school here in the call, but thinking about how she intentionally used this information to select the strategies that she's doing, I think is a tool that we could all walk away from, regardless if the strategy she selected is what you would do or not. So thank you. I'm welcoming Dr. Baker to the space. Please come off mute. And if you could go to the next slide, Christine. So.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm going to reiterate exactly the introduction that Amanda gave. There is no panacea bullet. I'm standing before you as the probably worst performing high school right now, comprehensive high school in terms of chronic absenteeism for the city of Waterbury. The nice part is I can tell you my chronic absenteeism came in at 69% last school year, but I am able to start our conversation by saying that we as a team here at Wilby are just painfully reflective and had to sit down and go, all right, how do we wrap our heads around fixing this? Amanda started the conversation with asking each of us to identify just within ourselves, what is that, what is the key component that you see that you need as a leader? And then how do you transfer that in terms of your climate and your culture? I'll tell you, when I started 3 years ago here at Wilby, one of the things everybody kept saying to me is, oh my God, Baker, the culture and climate is just, it's everyone's down in the dumps. The motivation is really down in the dumps. What are you going to do to get everybody motivated? And I had to think about, myself personally. And I will tell you, one of the key components that I realized for myself as a leader, what I needed was a sense of autonomy. And I feel like in the past 3 years, one of the major themes that we have allowed for the staff here at Wilby is a sense of autonomy. We have such brilliant educators here in this building that have very specific talents in all different areas that just needed to be shown and allowed to be released to lead. So I'm fortunate enough to say that by building this sense of autonomy in our staff, we have found that every single staff member who is here, albeit few, we have the same issue that all districts are having right now, struggling with finding staff, is that the staff here, their staff wellness and allowing them a sense of autonomy has allowed for people to be a part of our shared leadership team. So I wanted to start by saying that because when we talk about motivation, there's, it's money's not the motivator. That sense of autonomy for all of us and being able to lead work that we want to lead has been a saving grace for us here at Wilby because of the talent that we have in the building. So I'm just going to go into the middle component first, where we talked about structural adjustments. A big thing for us in a large comprehensive high school, as with everybody who's on this call right now, is we need to work smarter, not harder. And a sense of cohesion is absolutely paramount when leading work for staff, because there is just not another thing any one of us can take on in terms of emotionally, or what we're doing for ourselves and for our students. So please know that that sense of cohesion, as a leader, we had to really rein in what were we doing. When we looked at our numbers for last year, everybody just came back from COVID, and everybody came back developmentally, let's be honest, 2 to 5 years younger than what we typically have for starting freshmen through seniors. The structural adjustments were key for us. We fumbled last year. We fumbled in many, many areas, but what we were able to do is come back as an admin shared leadership team and go, all right, what did we do really lousy at, and how do we make this better for next year? So one major adjustment that we did build in for this coming school year is we built back in the 9th grade academies. Those are those smaller learning communities. We were fortunate enough to build in 3 smaller learning academies, which consist of 4 teachers: science, social studies, math, and English. A important component into each of these little smaller learning communities was we noticed that a lot of our students and our staff were missing that sense of belonging. How did they matter? How do they not slip through the cracks? And again, I'm going to keep repeating this. That's not just our kids. That was our adults. They needed to be seen and heard and felt. So in creating the smaller learning communities, one of the things we were able to do was we were able to utilize a curriculum that's going to act almost as like a 9th grade seminar course for us. In this 9th grade seminar course, we have built in, it was kind of a loosely written course. We were able to receive it through NCT3. We're part of a collaborative that's looking at our ability to create career and college ready students. And it looks at our technical ed classes in our building and says to kids, which one of these electives do you like? What area excites you? So we felt like by building into this 9th grade academy, one class that every single teacher will teach is this 9th grade seminar. In 9th grade seminar, we built in topics like goal setting. We built in topics like, what do you want to be when you grow up? How to monitor your own goal setting, tracking your goals. What is your dream? What is your hope to become? What areas are you excited about when you think about professions? Is it something along the lines of aviation? Is it something along the lines of health? So within this one course, it's a 90-minute block, because we are a district who's running 4x4 90-minute blocks, 4 periods a day. Every 9th grader will receive in their rotation at least 2 times a week this seminar course. We were fortunate enough because our admin, who are sitting on this call right now, actually created a schedule where every single teacher on their 9th grade academy will track just 28 students all year long. Now, we have not figured out all of this yet. Trust me, we're building data systems as we go, but each of those teachers is going to be asked to track that 28 students, their attendance, their behavior, and then their academic progress, whether or not they're passing all their classes. So that structural adjustment alone just allowed us to hone in on this 9th grade academy. We were also fortunate enough that we built in one common planning time for all 12 of these teachers. One of the things we heard our teachers say over and over and over again is they themselves needed some wellness. They themselves needed to network with other professionals on just the day-to-day stuff. And then sometimes, frankly, the overall mental wellness of, all right, how do I get through this year? How do I get through the holiday season? So that structural adjustment of embedding in this 9th grade seminar was a massive component for us. Building in one period where teachers and students can connect and progress monitor, and one period then where teachers can connect and say, hey, how did you do with that data in the 9th grade English class? And then a vertical conversation about, oh my God, how is so-and-so doing in your classroom? Because it sounds like he's doing great, but in my classroom, he comes in and he falls apart every single day. So allowing for structures for teachers to network and allowing in those structures for students and teachers to build their relationship and their sense of belonging. So once we moved away from structural adjustments, okay, create this ninth grade academy, build in this ninth grade seminar. Next came, oh my God, how do we progress monitor this? And again, not something we did well with this year. We really were reactionary on so many components, like every other school was trying to ensure that, the hallways were safe, ensure that, we had enough teachers in the classroom. Creating a progress monitoring system around sense of belonging kind of left us scratching our head. We were, again, fortunate enough to be part of the Commissioners Network, which we received a qualitative data system. It's called Panorama. And in Panorama, there are 2 different surveys that our whole school got last year. One of the surveys was called the, I'll give you the Student Supports and Environment Survey. But embedded in the Student Support Survey, there's 2 components. One is sense of belonging, which just asks kids, how do you feel? How are you with this? And then the other part of that was teacher-student relationships. This coming year, we're going to build in that qualitative survey into our ninth grade seminar. And we're going to do it quarterly. And we're going to be able to progress monitor each student's sense of belonging. And that data can be shared with our teachers. Do I know how all of this is going to go yet? Absolutely not. Again, we're building in the structures. We're going to learn this as we go. We as the admin team will be in with our teams looking at the data and saying, okay, what's it look like? Now, how do we adjust again? Because you all know, being in public education right now, every day is an adjustment. Every day you have to be reflective and get ready for that next stage, just like with teacher data.
Michelle, can I pause you for a moment?
Yes.
Thank you. And I think so important. So a couple of things that I just want to universalize for the group. So Panorama is one tool that you could use to measure school climate survey, SEL skills. There's a ton out there. Obviously, the State Department is supporting some work with the DESA as a SEL screening tool. But I don't this is again where I feel like folks are waiting for the magic wand to come hit, and it's oh, it's Panorama, we just need that data and then we'll be able to do the next thing. Thinking critically about what data does your school or district already collect, and how might you be able to lift some of the things that Michelle was able to lift from her Panorama data. It was obvious in Michelle's data, the sense of belonging was an area that came out. In your data, it might not be that same word, it might not be sense of belonging, but it might say, hey, relationships is an area we need to focus on. It might say social awareness is an area we might need to work on. It might say our family engagement and communication strategies is an area we need to work on. So thinking about what data you might have already, and if you don't have this type of data, how might you fill those gaps? So thank you, Dr. Baker, for that. The other thing that I just want to say, I put it in the chat, that thinking about your structures of support for staff and how you've aligned that collaborative planning time, that sacred period for staff and students to genuinely connect. And there was a follow-up question from Christina in the chat. So do you have a sample schedule of those built-in staff meetings? At what point in the day does that group meet? And was this in addition to other collaborative meetings?
I'm glad that you asked that, because I am going to tell you at the end of this, I tell everyone, because we're all a work in progress, myself 10 times included. I'm going to be open to these questions all year, and I'll share anything that I have. Just know that I'm not positive all of it's going to work, and I'm just going to keep living through it. But absolutely, I'll share that 4x4 schedule with you. I'll share that one period, and I'm going to tell you, it's already embedded in contractually what we have as our teacher meeting time. What we're trying to make, though, is, you guys all know, we build in data time and everybody look at data, and sometimes there's just times where teachers need to sit in those meetings and go, okay, I need a timeout, stop. Where do I go from here behaviorally to manage the class, let alone, how do I gain, the next few points growth? What they're looking for is the ability to network. So I'm going to keep going back to staff wellness, and there are multiple steps to the staff wellness that we as an admin team are ensuring that we're trying to do. And I say that as a school that we're critically down, 27 staff. And none of this is panaceic. None of this is working so well that it's amazing. But what I do know is the people who are left here do feel that sense of belonging as adults. And you can't ask an adult to be able to give that to a child if they don't feel it. And if they don't feel it from us. So I'm glad that you brought that forward. And I'll even share with you some of the stuff that we have on the Panorama data. It's collectible through your own surveys. We were creating our own surveys some days with open-ended questions because we weren't getting to the heart of what kids wanted from us. And I'll tell you, when we did ask our kids what they wanted from us, we were very taken back that there were 5 very simplistic components all around. They just wanted to feel closer to us. They wanted better relationships. They wanted more fun. They're kids. Our whole last 2 marking periods, we built in, we kept saying, build in the feels. Everybody just build in more opportunities where parents can come see their kids do great and kids can share their successes with other kids. So I had to say that because it's vitally important how well your staff feel ready to do the work.
Michelle, I'm going to pause you again because I
Yeah.
think you spoke another gem that I think is important to kind of highlight and pull. So when you think about, you used your Panorama data to kind of identify the sense of belonging. You used your attendance data to hone in on 9th grade because that was an area that you were seeing a big dip in kids just like not starting off in an engaged and connected way. So there was intentionality around selecting 9th grade, selecting, that sense of belonging activities. But you also mentioned you heard from students around what their needs are. So we know that good, sustainable selection of practices, we have to understand who's our focus population, which your focus population was 9th grade. And what do they think are their needs? What are they saying to you? These are barriers, these are challenges. How did you find that out? What students were saying where their needs are, and how did you link those root causes to the strategies that you selected?
So again, we were part of the School Family Partnership State Collaborative. And one of the tools that we learned from that was a listening tool. And the listening tool involves something we're not good at as educators. We brought forth 10% of our population, and I believe that our VPs got more than 10% of the population. They sat down small groups of students, 10 to 12 students in the Library Media Center, sat them all down and read through a series of questions. And then I will tell you, the adults had to do this. Sit on your hands, close your mouth, do what you have to do, and script down everything the kids said to us. And we asked a series of questions about, what do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? Ms. Henson, who's on this call with us today, who leads a lot of our work around chronic absenteeism, ran all of these small little sessions where there were student listening sessions. Being reflective enough and listening to her say, wow, this was going really well. One of the things we instituted as an admin team was, I sat some of my teachers down. I put both my hands over my mouth and I was like, what makes you stay? Why do you want to be here? I just blurted out. We could take anything. We're thick-skinned. We instituted these listening sessions with our students and our adults. But those listening sessions were a part of us garnering this student voice. And our students did feel heard. So very simplistic things, we checked off the list right away. They said, we want the bathrooms open. We want cleaner bathrooms. The hallways, floors look dirty. Ms. Henson went through, check, 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 pulled in the custodians, everything got done. Brought the group back and said, listen, let me tell you from what you told us that you needed and you wanted, we did this. Then the next series, and she lumped them kind of like in 3 chunks. One was like a facilities issue. Then the other was like student issues. And the other was like teacher issues. When we looked at the student issues, a lot of them were, we want to have fun. We want to have school plays. They were coming off of COVID and feeling so isolated. Our last 4 marking periods, like I said, the motto was bring back the feels. We had more shows, more plays, more outdoor events where kids, there was, cooking on the grill, simple things to reward good behavior. Our SAT test, if you participated and sat in the SAT, we had a huge cookout in the back area. So we were able to, again, bring all of the students back who participated in our student voice group and go, okay, we heard you. You said you wanted more of this. We check. Now we met with the teachers and said, what do you guys want more of? Same thing with the teachers. They wanted sense of belonging. They wanted to feel heard. So that reflective process started when we started participating in the school and family partnership component. And we are just so grateful for Ann Henderson. We worked with our counterparts from the state. You guys are amazing, but it allowed for us to use the tool that you gave us now in multiple different formats. So we were reflective and said, okay, how could we use this in other spots? So I'm glad, Amanda, that you gave me the opportunity to speak to that, because, sometimes the tools are so simple, they hurt because that one was just sit down and be quiet. And it yielded for us probably the greatest component in terms of student voice, which was the last piece I had to speak to in terms of the 3 topics. When we talk about developing the sense of cohesion for your staff and your students, student voice for us felt almost so simple around getting our students involved in leading their own work. And when I tell you they led, they just light years out in front of us. So in order to develop a nice, neat, cohesive way of garnering our student voice, we decided that in the 9th grade academy, and Steve Prophet is on this call. He has been so wonderful. You're going to get this in our school design plan that we're sending to you.
Great.
He kept asking us, he's like, think how to garner in more. So we have this 9th grade academy, but one of the things we wanted to do was, in order to monitor attendance and allow for some of our older students, our 12th grade students, to get out in front of our younger students, we wanted to build in a peer mentoring group. So this year, in that seminar course, not only are we going to have the teacher, the behavior tech, and the guidance counselor, but we want to bring in a 12th grade mentor. Again, we're building this as we're going. I don't know how great it's going to go, but for each of those 12 classrooms, we're going to allow for one 12th grade mentor to be able to get their own learning, so that we meet with them as adults, and then allow for them to be able to speak to the 9th grade students about their experiences, how they're getting ready for college applications, which colleges they went to see, but just getting them out in front of the students, getting them comfortable doing that public speaking. So we're going to start small. Right now it's 12 students in terms of that peer mentoring group. And then our hope is to be able to garner enough data on that and enough positive feedback that we can grow that. So again, Steve is always asking us to look at systems and then build those systems so that they're hierarchically, cohesive through your whole school. So now when we do our celebrations around attendance, now we have this team of those 12 students who are going to lead those ceremonies for us. Getting our students to be our leaders, which frankly, they're ready. We put Will Be Kids out on Board of Ed meetings and they just flourish. Our students are articulate, and hearing their student voice has been allowing us to do a lot of our work with a lot more ease. So that last component of building in the student voice, like I said, we're going to garner it right through the 9th grade academy, but we are going to build in ways for our students to then be able to work with the younger student population and hopefully have them present monthly in the evening, so that parents now and the community, we all know this, the only reason I want to go to my kids' schools, I want to see my kids. So if those kids are presenting now monthly and showing Wilby's data, now we're going to garner the parents to come in and watch their students lead. So that is the plan for right now. And we're hoping it's going to be, ongoing, and we're going to be reflective, and we're going to see it happen every month and build from there.
Dr. Baker, I could have you probably chat for like 20 more Talk Tuesdays. I do have a couple wrap up pieces that I just want to, if you could quickly touch to, but I want to thank you, for your honesty and vulnerability and willingness to share with the group. I also said that there was no magic wand, but I think Dr. Baker gave us some magic wands as far as how you use data to inform your strategies, how you engage students in the work. I know we have folks from all across districts and probably school ages. And I will say it's not just a high school strategy to engage students in the work. It starts in pre-K and elementary school, engaging students in the work. So that strategy can be used regardless your grade band. But if you could just quickly touch, because I think this is important too, Michelle, and I didn't add this slide, but I'm thinking about it now, that none of these efforts were in isolation, that you had multiple initiatives and strategies that were being implemented for various reasons, but you tried your best to align and strategically intersect them. So Michelle, if you could just speak of some of the other work that is going on and will be that is connected to your sense of belonging and your engagement efforts.
Sure. We are, again, I say fortunate enough because here's a superpower we all have as administrators. Boy, are we raw and out there and open, because we take a lot of hits, but a lot of our growth is coming from our ability to, we were participating in the Commissioners Network, and I've said that over and over again, but being a part of that Commissioners Network has allowed us opportunities to work with EdRise, our teacher prep program, our school to family partnership, our state collaboration, the SIG grant funding that we utilize. All of these things, one thing we're constantly doing is, you know how the state has the format, they call it TACO, the talent, the academics, the climate, the culture, and the operations. We are consistently finding each of these strategies, creating an overarching strategy that embeds each of those components. So our teacher retention program right now under talent has the student voice, the student listening sessions built into it. Why? Because it was a great tool for the student part, but now we've got to do it with our adults. So, you know, like Amanda said, we have been fortunate enough to be exposed to so many different other opportunities. And frankly, so many other principals. We go into these meetings all the time, and when we find other principals and we're like, hey, come to my school, come take a look at what I'm doing. Can I come to your school? That networking has allowed for us to say, every time we sit at the table, we have to do it cohesive, because frankly, you guys, you can't take on another thing, can you? I don't sleep at night. This overtakes my mind on the weekends. I get it. So I think cohesion, well, frankly, it's probably just a way to keep sanity. So, oh yeah, that's another thing. And that was Miss Henson, by the way, my VP room, they're amazing. We're being accredited in 6 weeks. So one of the things we did when we built our application was we used the 5 learning standards of our NEASC accreditation and made sure they completely aligned to the talent, academics, climate, and culture, and operations. None of them are different, but it's creating strategies that have a piece of all of it, so that you are doing more with less.
And fit our core values.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. I just wanted to illustrate that this isn't a standalone silo effort for you all, that you are really working across initiatives, across, looking at academic instruction and good tier 1 instructional practices, looking at your tier 1 behavioral supports, thinking about how you are explicitly teaching some SEL skills. So like so many pieces, but thoughtfully done, intentionally done, looking critically at your data. What are the needs of your student? How does this fit with your framework and what you are moving forward with? And what are the capacity and supports you have in place for adults? So thank you. I know we have just like 6 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap up, because I think there's like an official wrap up, and I could probably make us go past time way too much. So Christine, next slide. I just ask that, as some key takeaways here, ask you all to reflect on, what does relationship building look like in your schools, in your district? How are you, strategically aligning the things and initiatives that you all are doing? How are you supporting the adults? How are you supporting the students and the families? And how does this fit together? What structures of support do you have in place? Again, not just for kids, but also for those adults. So thinking about structures like common planning time, data team meetings, vertical teams, PD, professional learning. What does that look like? How are we supporting the adults in our building? How do we align those efforts? And then what needs to be supported in order to actually implement with fidelity? So how are we going to, and Michelle, I won't make you answer this question, but because I know you have an answer, but those listening circles are great. How do we take that data and say, did it work? Did we see an increase in sense of belonging? Are we seeing kids come to school more? Are our staff staying? Are we sustaining our staff? So thinking critically about how we go back to that information and really progress monitor our efforts. And is it making a difference and working? You'll see in the next few slides is a bunch of links to resources. I'm not going to thoroughly go through them, but as Christine clicks, so the first one is the hexagon tool. I mentioned need, fit, capacity probably too many times. That comes straight from the hexagon tool. I encourage you all to use that and look at that critically when selecting strategies, regardless for what you're selecting strategies on. It's a great tool for academic, school climate and culture, and attendance. Next, Christine. Here's some school climate resources from the State Department of Ed. So we have an evidence-based guide. We have a board position statement, a lot of, just good resources there for you to kind of ground yourself in some of this work. Next. And then some specific tools for relationship building. So the first one is from Turnaround for Children. This could be a great kind of strategy for your educators to think about what do relationships look like in their classroom. It's a data tool and then some strategies that they might want to enact. I did do a PD with my colleagues in the Turnaround office around creating culturally sustaining classroom practices that build relationships. So there's links to that resource along with some pop-up PDs that I had done. And then obviously some links to some other great tools from CASEL, some Search Institute, and from Teachers Works. So I think that's the wrap up from us. I think this next slide, you all want to take down Dr. Baker's email address. She said she's willing to share and create a network with you all, so take her up on the offer. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me at any time. Kari and I'm so lucky to work with her and collaborate. But if you have some specific needs around climate, culture, supporting your adults, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you all so much for what you do. Please make sure you take care of yourselves this summer, rest, and take care of yourselves.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Michelle. Some great information here. Thank you, Kari, as well, for the CSDE and info in the beginning. And we wanted to kind of wrap up with thanking all of you for coming and participating and adding your voice and just being a part of our space right now. And if there are any questions or whatnot, those emails are a great way to reach out to our facilitators for today. And they could really give you what you're looking for as well. So our next Talk Tuesday summer series is going to be on August 9th, and that's tracking and monitoring attendance data for all students. And Kari Sullivan-Custer will be facilitating that with a hopefully a district or community partner. And then on to our last Talk Tuesday summer series session will be August 23rd, and that's equitable and inclusive partnerships with families to support student attendance and engagement. And Judy Carson also will be facilitating that session. We will be giving you a follow-up email once we get everything posted on the Talk Tuesday webpage. So if you'd like to see this one more time, access some of the information and materials, it will be there. But we thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you on August 9th.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.